Let me show you a big advantage of using fire bricks instead of red bricks. Don't try this with red bricks at home, ladies and gentlemen. You like to play firefighter too, Matt? Yeah. What else do I have to do in my backyard? That's the steam. Hey everybody, it's Stove Talk with Matt. This was almost a success, but it turned out to be a failure. The final metric was, and I'll show you via my cursor, guys, on a different program how this stove works. I'll show you more video. If you could open the door at any time and the draft out the back and up was so strong that you'd never get smoke in the house. You could add wood when you had high flames, then this would have been a keeper. Even that, it might have smoked a little bit too much. There were times when it went smoke free. You know, that's kind of like the metric that I always strive for. But it didn't. It let too much smoke into the room, or it would let too much into the living room when you opened the door, and that was the final nail in the coffin. But there's some things we can learn, and I'll look to your comments, and we learn and we improve. After the new wood, it took about 10 minutes. I mean, it returned to very, very low smoke, but guys, 5, 6, 7 minutes, I mean, it was bad. It was really smoking. The barrel is at the top is only 240 degrees, which is a nice quick heat. You know, it takes an hour and a half for all these bricks to start radiating out their full heat. It's good now. One of the advantages a stove like this would have to have is because it draws in the back, that you should be able to open this door here and add wood really whenever you want. But I'll show you, if I pull that piece of insulation out, it'll probably smoke pretty bad. So that's probably the main thing that'll sink this stove. You could add wood at any time there by just pulling the door, opening the door, and you don't get any smoke because it's drafting in the back. That would be a real advantage. So let's just do the test now. And this might sink the stove. Hold on, let me put my gloves on. Hold on. Again, it took a while for everything to heat up, but hey, that's pretty good. But maybe the barrel eventually will get to close to 300 at the top. Well, let's see what happens. Yeah, smoke's pouring out of there. So, you know, it's not terrible. Let's see what happens after a few minutes. The firebox is, as you can see, 5 fire bricks tall, not including the base. Each fire brick in that direction is 2.5 inches. So 5 tall and probably 9 inches long, 3 back would be 27 inches. It's a good sized firebox. I'll show you in another program how it drafts. In this program, you can see my cursor. The way the fire and the smoke escapes to the chimney is this side is all brick, all blocked off. This side, this is all blocked off up here. 2 half brick opening. So this is just a half brick on its side and a half brick, 2.5, 2.55. So basically it's 2 bricks on their side. This little square is at the bottom and one up is the only way for the flame and hot gases to get to the chimney. The chimney is on this side, and the idea is it doesn't just go up the chimney. It's blocked off here. It has to go behind these bricks. It goes and wraps around to create turbulence, and then up. The chimney is only, you know, it's just the stacking of 4 fire bricks, which makes your chimney 4.5 by 4.5. It's just a small square. And that's great for rocket stoves, but it was fine here as well. But one of the main mistakes in making stoves for many people is a chimney that's just too large, too wide. you can get away with a lot thinner and skinnier than you think. So again, it had to go 2 brick opening, it had to wrap around to the left, and then it's just 1 square of 4.5 up, goes up quite a ways, about 12 to 14 bricks, like a rocket stove riser. I'll show you in another program how the gases flow through the entire stove. Okay, again, I hope you can see the cursor. This is the door here where you load the wood. Again, 5 fire bricks high. I just have for my little air square here. Well, it's allowing a lot of air for a wood stove. It's just a small square between 2 fire bricks on their side, and then I have the insulation shoved in here. So you load the wood in here, and the idea behind only allowing the gases to escape up the chimney, remember, through these 2 half bricks at the bottom. 2 half bricks, flame and turbulence here, have to kind of dive down, and then they wrap around to the other side of the stove, and then up the riser all the way to the top here. So the riser's probably 12 bricks high. Trying to create a rocket stove type effect or riser inside a stove like this, and it really didn't. I think the turbulence of having to go around the corner helped a bit with the smoke. Slams against the top, dips down 4 or 5 bricks, goes under a 2 brick opening, and then the riser again is that same 4.5 by 4.5. The size riser you can make with 4 fire bricks, which goes all the way up into the barrel. And it doesn't get real close like a J rocket stove. It doesn't go up to 2 inches or anything. It just goes to about 10 inches away. And then, the hot gases feed down the side of the barrel. And I have this dryer vent, this 8-foot, 6-inch, 8-foot dryer vent with a 90-degree elbow, shoved in the hole of this. Is just your typical rocket stove barrel with a 6-inch round hole at the bottom. To get the initial draft going, it did take 2 full pieces of newspaper, but then it was just fine. So again, flames here. The ceiling on the firebox is just 5 bricks high. The opening to the chimney was just 2 halves. Has to go in, but then wrap around to the left up the rocket stove riser, which is just 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches, a small square up to the top. If anybody's saying that needs to be larger, no, it doesn't. Absolutely not. It goes up to the top, then forward, dips down, and then finally finds the final riser of 12 or 13, fire bricks, just a square. Again, 4.5 by 4.5, which the brick riser goes all the way up into the barrel, stops maybe 10 inches away, and then the gases feed down and go out the hole, of which it's a 90-degree elbow shoved in a hole in the back, and then an 8-foot 6-inch galvanized dryer vent. Again, be very careful with galvanization and zinc burning off. It's very hazardous and dangerous. So that's how it works: in, up, down, up, with bricks stacked, the chimney bricks stacked all the way up into the riser. Some good principles. It just altogether it was close. It just there was things I didn't like about it. Many things I didn't like about it, but it was close. I learned a lot. This would be the only air opening. No smoke at all coming out there. That's pretty darn good. Guys, what I just showed in the video and showing here is the very first test with the stove. The bricks are in the exact same position. I wanted to test, the channels, the S channels in the bricks, but I just, instead of the barrel being on top, I put on just as a test my 4-foot insulated chimney, which mimics more of a full-size chimney, just to help with the draft and the draw. So when I was this is a hearth stove, not a grate stove. There's no grate that draws air up from underneath. And one of the main advantages of a hearth stove, where you just burn right on top of the fire brick with just a 2 brick but 2 half brick opening in the back down low to get into the chimney, one of the advantages is, the Russians call it a bottom heating. If you have a high firebox where the gases escape through the top, your bricks at the bottom are very cold. They just don't warm up. It was tremendous for bottom heating. The whole firebox was part of your masonry heater here. An hour and 15 to an hour and a half later, all the firebox bricks were so piping hot. It does take about, for any type of brick, masonry stove or Russian stove, even with red brick or fire brick, it takes about an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half for all the heat to start radiating out. These stoves are, unless you use the barrel, that's the hybrid approach, or unless you use some metal to get that quick initial heating. If you do it just brick, it's not good for a workshop or anything like that because it takes too long for the heat to start radiating out. So what would make or break the stove, I guess I alluded to it earlier, is because it vents out the back and low, and the air is drawn very aggressively in the front through a relatively low ceiling firebox. I thought, well, if you can open the door up in your house and have no smoke coming in your house, and you just add 3 or 4 more pieces of wood, even if the fire is burning really heavily, because the flames are being drawn not as much up, but back and out. So I thought, which was a failure. I don't know. I really don't understand why this didn't draft more aggressively out the back. I thought you just open the door at any time, add 3 or 4 pieces of smaller oak, not have any smoke come into your house, and that would be a huge advantage. You're burning on the hearth, so it's bottom heating. And I said, without that, this stove's kind of a failure. And you saw, I believe I showed you that in the video already, that when I pulled the insulation, smoke started to come back. And we need to learn from that why. We'll ponder that in the back. So one of my main advantages of this, it failed. I don't, if this stove is a failure if it smokes your house out when you try to add wood. Now most ironwood stoves, if you try to add wood when the door is, you open the door and the flames are shooting up, most ironwood stoves, because the baffle pushes everything forward, will smoke your house out if you try to add wood when the flames are going. People think there's something wrong with the stove, but that's just the design of it. You can't open the door when the flames are high in a regular ironwood stove. So this should have, I thought, worked the opposite way, everything being sucked out the back, and we'll ponder it at the end. It didn't for some reason, which you think you have everything figured out, and you get hit with stuff like this. On my first test, before I put the barrel on, what I just showed you, I know this is something different here, what you're looking at now, but on the first test, I got all excited because it went smoke-free for a long time, and I made those videos. Oh, this is going to be a smoke-free design. But even in my test before the barrel, it's still, it's strange. It's actually, after I added fresh wood, it was smoke-free for a few minutes, and then actually, as the new wood was burning, it actually started to smoke. It almost seemed like it was drawing in too much air. If too much air goes into the chimney too quickly, it'll smoke because the temperatures then in the chimney come down a bit. So it's not as smoke-free as I may allude to in this video. It goes smoke-free, but it takes too long. I mean, it smokes, it billows out smoke for 5, 6, 7 minutes. Now, if everything was mortared and tight and insulated, that would be better. But either way, there's not enough advantages to this stove to build it, I don't think. We'll just learn from it. And also, the barrel did not get as hot as I thought it would. This test with the barrel, it went relatively smoke-free but again, as I added wood, then the same thing happened. Not initially when I added wood, it didn't smoke. It smoked 5 minutes or 6 or 7 minutes after I added the fresh wood. It was very strange. But you'd expect the barrel to smoke more because the barrel cools everything down. It's just as a general rule, even if you could have like a rocket stove type thing, I've seen this too much, I've mentioned this in the last video, you could have smoke-free going right up the first riser. But if you wind the gases around, and it almost seems like as they cool off along the channels, the smoke kind of comes back. I know I kind of had the same, I presented it the same way in the last video. I know that doesn't make sense. Once the smoke's gone, it's gone. Not necessarily. If you cooled it off down the line, it'll smoke again. Anyway, I expected the barrel cools everything off big time. So I expected this to smoke more, and it did. But I'm always going for no smoke. Some people are like, I can live with a little smoke. If this had the advantages I wanted it to, then it would be worth it with a little. But it wasn't just the fact that it smoked a bit that bothered me. It was again that big thing of being able to open the door when the flames are burning. But I just wanted to show you this picture because it's just just your basic rocket stove barrel that with the 6-inch hole carved, obviously on the left side, a non-adjustable, a hard 90-degree elbow stovepipe, 6-inch stovepipe, 90-degree elbow. Most that sell are flexible. You get all these different positions. This one is fixed, and then it's just your typical from Home Depot or Lowe's, your 8-foot, 6-inch or 8-foot dryer vent that pulled the gases up and away. So that I just want to show you what was going on here. And there's more to say because we have to, if it's a failure, then we have to learn something or it's all for nothing. Remember, the riser going up into the barrel was just your stacking of 4 fire bricks, which makes a chimney of 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. A relatively small square, but that is big enough for a lot of stoves. You can't go any bigger than that by stacking fire bricks the regular way. They're not on their side. They're just regularly stacked flat fire bricks going up into the barrel. It doesn't seem like there'd be enough room around the sides, but there is. So just the basic principle of having a fire brick riser stacked normally, not on its side, going up into a barrel, you can do that. You can do that for hundreds of stove designs. And at the corners of the fire brick, it's like there's not enough room for the gases. There is enough room for the gases. It didn't slow anything down, no problem at all. So something we can learn from hundreds of stove designs. You want to put your 4 fire brick chimney riser up into a barrel. You could take it up to, if you had like a rocket stove engine, you could take it up to just 3 inches away from the top. But just to be safe, if you don't have that incredible draft, 5, 6, 7 inches away from the top. And then again, at the corners of the fire brick are very close to the metal of the barrel. Like there's not enough room. There is enough room if you want to design a stove where you put your riser up into a barrel. Of course, that's the only size riser with regular U.S. fire bricks, 9 inches by 4.5 by 2.5. Can't go any larger than that inside a barrel. Okay, remember, if this stove drafted in the right direction, when you opened the door to add wood, then it would probably be worth building. So you can see all that smoke right underneath the insulation there. You can see, now no smoke's coming out if this was in your house because the air opening is just a half brick. It's just the insulation acts as the door. Everything's rushing through this half brick. But remember, when we pulled the insulation out, that smoke that you can see right there under the insulation, it's just rolling around, and which means the draft out the back is just not sucking hard enough. It's not aggressive enough. All flame and smoke want to go up initially. So the only way, to avoid being smoked out when you open the door to add wood. Again, many stoves you cannot open the door to add wood when the flames are just burning like this. You cannot do it in 90% of wood stoves. It'll smoke out your house. You have to wait till everything goes to coals before you open the door and add wood. With some exceptions. I don't want to talk about the Sidor stove or anything like that. There's some exceptions. But the main advantage of this was, hey, let's just add 3 more pieces of oak on top of a raging fire. And you can see all that smoke rolling around, which means that draft out the back was just not strong enough. And if somebody says, well, you only had a 2 brick opening, one half, but 2 on the right side, the left was blocked off. Maybe if you made it a 3 brick opening, it might have helped this smoke situation. But there's no reason to make the opening bigger because the riser itself, or the initial chimney, and the channels through the stove are only that small square, 4.5 to 4.5. Eventually it's got to go into that small space. But if I made the entry to the riser a little bit higher, a little bit higher instead of just at the absolute bottom and then 1 brick up, one half start. The entrance to the chimney started at the very bottom. The flames and gases have to dip down to get out, and maybe that's That's the big mistake here, where if you had the entry to the riser, your initial riser, higher or more towards the top of the stove, you would not, I don't think we would have this problem at all of having, smoking the house out while adding fresh wood. However, then you have another problem. Then you lose your bottom heating. Your bricks along the bottom are going to be colder. And this stove had a few other problems too. The barrel didn't get as hot as I would have liked. The barrel, struggled to get at the top 250 degrees. And halfway down the barrel was on like 180 degrees. That's just not hot enough for a barrel. So that was a problem too. It's just, it's the gases are touching so much brick. And as the brick heats up, if you burn the stove for 2 or 3 hours, it would all get hotter. But you want barrel temperatures, 300-400. And that was not really good either. Okay, back to where you can see the cursor. One thing that we can learn from, which I think is a really good idea of mine, I've never seen anybody do this. Somebody might say, well, what's the barrel sitting on? The stove is only 2 fire bricks wide. It looks wider here because these bricks on the side act as supports for the barrel. And the barrel's sitting on a piece of wood, but this, let me just explain my idea that can be incorporated into a lot of stove designs. So the stove is only 2 fire bricks wide. 9 and 9 is 18. The barrel is wider than 18, so the barrel hangs off the front, it hangs off the sides, and only is secure on the back. So how does that work? Well, for this test, of course, wood is not going to work permanent, but just for the test, I created a piece of wood exactly the same size, cut out with a jigsaw, exactly the same size as the barrel. And the middle of the wood is I cut a square out in the middle of the plywood, the same size as my riser that goes up into the barrel. 4 fire bricks stacked together. So the chimney in the middle of those 4 fire bricks is 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. So what you would do again, this whole right side of the stove here is just stacked up to create a support. But in a masonry heater, these bricks would heat up as well, and you have more mass, and it's not really the end of the world. And then I just have this little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fire bricks stacked up to hold the right side of my the base for the wooden circle that holds the barrel. Now, to do this, and really you would need a piece of metal, but the easiest way, and it's if anybody could afford it, is if you get a scrap of soapstone from a countertop dealer. I don't know, you pay them, I don't know what you'd have to pay them. It depends if your friend worked there or whatever. You pay them $70 or $80 they have to cut a square out in the middle of the soapstone, so your fire brick riser goes up through the middle. And the square cut out in the middle does not have to be exact. It can be very off. Definitely it can be a ½ inch too big. And even the circle cut out of the soapstone that would hold the barrel can be too big too, because a little bit of soapstone hanging off just adds more mass and more radiant heat. And you just lower the soapstone piece over the riser, with again a square cut out of the middle of the soapstone. And if you secured it properly, and you might not even need these supports on the outer, and also have support 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a support of 8 here in the front. That's not part of the stove as well, just to hold up the circular piece of wood. But this is something that can be used in hundreds of stove designs. You can have a fire brick riser going up into a barrel, and you can have if you knew somebody at a countertop place or scraps, or I don't know what, it depends. Everybody's going to be different. Some people want to charge you the full amount or whatever it may be. Or you could actually use, for a stove like this, you could actually use like a piece of hardy backer board. I mean, the temperatures are just not extreme, once they're coming down the sides of the cool barrel. But ideally, it would be a piece of granite, or a countertop place would do you a favor. And I don't have a better diagram of that at this time, guys. I've shown you that in other videos, I believe. But that is something that can be used at a lot of different stove designs. I'm thinking we're getting too. I'm getting too complicated with these stoves, and the riser goes up and then it snakes down. Honestly, we're getting too complicated. I'm going back to the basics. Just stack, literally create a firebox, most of the cases with a grate at the bottom. So the air comes under the grate into the wood. Just stack up a bunch of fire bricks where the flame comes directly up into the barrel. And you create some sort of a riser up here with fire bricks if you want. Just do it. No, there's no reason to have it winding all over the place. Simple. I'm going back to the basics. Just create a square of fire bricks with a grate and a door. So your flame is lapping. When your flames lap up, close to 20 inches, it burns all the smoke up. They become no smoke stoves. Then you have a smaller, if you go back in my videos, I have a coal stove test where the fire brick riser goes up into the barrel. And there's zero smoke for hours and hours, nothing, but it is coal. But even when I used the wood to get it started, there was no smoke. Just burn in the square. Have the riser then get smaller as you go up into the barrel, and get your soapstone cut out, and you put your barrel in the soapstone, support it, and there's your stove. Piece of cake. I'm going back to the basics. There's no reason for this winding all over the crap. The Russians do it, and I get the feel they never show you the damn chimney. The Russians, they never show you what's coming out the chimney. And my opinion is, decent amount of smoke for a long time. These stoves do not go smoke free, which is, I don't know. It's a big deal for me. It's a big deal for a lot of people. Your Russians don't care, I guess. To get a no smoke stove, you have a super high firebox, and you just allow a lot of air and for the flames to lap up high. It's when you create these ceilings or these. With the rocket stove batch box, it can be done because the batch box and the riser right next to the port creates such draft and turbulence that it's all, and the riser is small and insulated. It all gets burned up with the high temperatures. So you go no smoke. But in any stove where you have a low ceiling on the firebox, it's just the flames hit relatively cold brick, and it just goes to smoke, creates smoke. High fireboxes where flames can lap up high are no smoke stoves. But then you lose mass, and it's always a trade-off. We're looking for the stove where there's always a trade-off. But anyway, guys, learned a few lessons, and I'm gonna think this through or talk it through myself anyway. I might as well make a video and just talk it through, and learned a few things. Thanks for being here.